Hello everyone, welcome to the ARSH. ARSH is the Arlar Research Group, and as you know, Arlar is the Arab League of Associations for Rheumatology. In this video, we will tell you about the ARSH activities and show you how you can contribute to advancing research in the Arab countries. The ARSH was established in June 2021 as one of the Arlar Special Interest Group. The ARSH's vision is to lead collaborative rheumatology research in Arab countries. The ARSH has a vision and a mission. Now the missions are to conduct and support high-quality collaborative research among Arab countries, to motivate and assist young researchers and connect with international research teams. The ARSH has already made significant steps in its research efforts, addressing crucial unmet needs in rheumatology in the Arab region. For instance, the macro projects have successfully mapped the rheumatology workforce, and while the efforts to understand burnout among rheumatologists have been well received, we have also made important steps in patient care, translating and culturally adapting the PSAID. PSAID, as you know, is psoriatic arthritis impact of disease questionnaire, to be used by Arab-speaking patients in both the clinical settings and clinical trials. And most importantly, we have implemented a multinational referral program for rheumatology, the ALPHA project, aiming to reduce diagnostic delays and to enhance patients' outcome. And fortunately enough, these projects are published in renowned, well-established international journals with high impacts. And also several abstracts were published in international congresses such as the EULAR and the ACR, with more than almost 13 abstracts presented in the last couple of years, and thus allowing Arab rheumatology research to gain worldwide visibility. The ARSH's commitment to collaboration extends beyond its own projects. So not only members of the ARSH are collaborating with each other, we are collaborating with other groups of the special interest. Our team has actively supported and endorsed other investigator-initiated projects in Arab countries. And lastly, research means collaboration. That's why the ARSH has created several collaborative projects with other Arlar special interest groups and also international study groups. Thank you very much.
ARSH has been privileged to host regular outstanding webinars by well-known experts in the field, highlighting essential principles in research. As an example, how to present your data, how to choose an adequate outcome for your study, or how to manage an international registry. In 2023, additionally, ARSH has launched a research looking at the referrals in rheumatology called the Alpha Referral Program. It aims to address the challenges in timely referring patients with rheumatoid arthritis, axial spondyloarthritis, and psoriatic arthritis. Exceptional speakers have been invited, and they have shared their tremendous experience during the program. Pediatric rheumatology also had a share in our research webinars, as well as leading international studies and the hot topics of artificial intelligence in rheumatology. Educational workshops were also conducted during the Arlar meetings in Jordan in 2022, in Kuwait in 2023, and is to be held in the upcoming Arlar Congress in Algeria. Additionally, the ARSH allowed 100 participants from the Arab countries to participate in the UCSF and BMG Research to Publication program, which allows them to successfully publish their results. 2 program winners were invited to participate in an international congress of their choice. The ARSH team consists of 16 national representatives of Arab countries. They have been nominated by their national societies, yet ARSH aims to recruit more members and participants across the Middle East region. So if you are interested to be a member or to collaborate in research with colleagues from the Arab countries, please do not hesitate to contact us or join ARSH Network on social media. We're looking forward to collaborate with you all.
Assalamu alaikum. Hello, everybody. We are honored to have with us Dr. Victoria Navarro Campan. She is a rheumatologist working at the University Hospital La Paz and ET Paz in Madrid, Spain, since 2015. She did her training as rheumatologist at University Hospital Virgin Marcena in Sevilla, Spain, and obtained her doctoral degree at the Leiden University Medical Center at the Netherlands. Currently, she combines clinical practice and research at La Paz University Hospital. Her main focus is in clinical research in the field of spondyloarthritis. She has participated in and led national and international research projects in the area of spondyloarthritis. She is currently a member of the assessment of the Spondyloarthritis International Societies, also acting as a president. She is qualified as European Alliance of Association for Rheumatology EULAR methodologist. She is also associate editor of Seminar in Arthritis, Science 2021, and member of the International Advisory Board of the Lancet Rheumatology. And she's also collaborated as reviewer for other high-impact journals. And it's our pleasure to welcome you, Dr. Victoria Navarro, in this webinar with the topic Top Reasons for Acceptance and Rejection of a Scientific Article, the Editor's Point of View. Dr. Victoria, the screen is yours.
Salam alaikum. Hello, everyone. I'm very glad to be here and to be invited to this webinar. The topic that I've been asked to discuss is the top reasons for acceptance and rejection of a scientific article, the editor's point of view. And I must admit that here I will express mainly my personal experience as an author, because I'm also being rejected many times for manuscripts, as a reviewer from different journals, and also as editor. There is no magical or tips that I can share, but that's why I say that this is mainly a personal experience based tips on what I see and what I will do or what I've learned in the last years. These are my disclosures, but the main reason to be here, I will say that I'm associate editors of a seminar in arthritis and rheumatism since for the last 4 years. And I'm also International Advisory Board for the Journal of the Lancet Rheumatology and reviewer for many of the journals in rheumatology. So the first tip that I will say that we need to start is that start small and achieve big. Usually people just start with a manuscript, and this is quite a challenge. I think that the first step is always to start with the idea, the research idea, which needs to be, well, a good research idea or interesting research idea. Then afterwards, also start working on either data collection or the methodology of the project. And then when we have the results, analyze them. And I would say that the first step before submitting a manuscript, what I usually always recommend is to submit abstracts to congresses. Even if they are just accepted for publication, that is a big already milestone, because then the results can be disseminated. And then when you disseminate the results, the probability of the reviewers to know the project when they review it already is higher than just receiving a completely new project or manuscript. So I think that presenting the data in congresses usually help the reviewers to know that a specific work and also the editor and the potential impact that may have on the field. Then the second tip would be to work in group. I think that is strange, but more and more common that we find manuscript of even trials submitted by a single manuscript or a single author or a couple of authors. This is not feasible. So I will say that if we want to achieve major goals, is better if we can collaborate in groups. Even this can be sharing data sets, this can be just collaborating with other colleagues who have the same interest in the same topics. And I will say this is already what I learned in the past. It's not just to work with our center, that's necessary, but I will say that it is most important to work in research in a national or international scope, but involving different centers and not only the data from our center. I would say that there is usually a concern to share the data of our own centers, but I would say that this was quite an all set mind. And if we are willing to share our data, then that will be even more disseminated by other colleagues who have more experience, and that will help even to the recognition of our cohort, if that is, for example, the case. Then I will start with the first step. So usually manuscripts, when they are submitted, they need to cross the first filter, which is the chief editor filter. The chief editor may not be focused in a specific disease that we are submitting, and therefore sometimes many of those manuscripts, they reach the associate editor in charge of that specific area. So for example, for the seminar, it was Mark Horgres who was receiving all the manuscript, but then most of them in spondyloarthritis, they went to me as associate editor. And the first thing that I will say that impacts the editor is the title. The title can be more or less attractive to the editor, and I think that that's something that we need to work. Many times we find just boring titles. This is, for example, I will give an example for systematic literature review. So when we just present, the results of how the early axial spondyloarthritis definition in the literature, systematic literature review. If we convert that into a question, so how is early axial spondyloarthritis defined, for example, that is much more attractive. And for the future, even to, let's call it, to sell our manuscript to anybody. So I would say that we should not put less attention to the title, and we should focus on trying to make it more attractive from a marketing point of view, because this, in the end, is all marketing at the first step to go through the editor. So I would say the editors review many manuscripts, and that's the first step that usually impacts. The second is to not use obsolete terms of criteria. For example, in the field of spondyloarthritis, I usually still see many, especially regions or that they submit in ankylosing spondylitis or using the criteria of modified New York criteria. So that always gives an impression that the research group is not updated. So if you are using an obsolete terminology, obsolete criteria, that means probably that the work must not be very innovative for the field. So I would say that even if when we have included patients with a subgroup, at least try to use more modern terminology or more updated terminology, so I'll include that within the discussion of the manuscript. Then also the abstract. The first thing, and sometimes the only thing that the editor reads, is the abstract. So the title, the authors, and the abstract. So with regard to the abstract, we put a lot of focus on the manuscript, and then we miss investing enough time to have an appropriate abstract. So the abstract the objective should be clear and consistent with the objective of the manuscript, because it is not uncommon that authors submit one objective for the abstract and another different for the manuscript. And I would say that that gives an impression that, well, it's a little bit messy. So I will say that this is very important to state the objective of the study clearly, and that it is innovative. It is answering a new research question. Then to put more description on the methods, because sometimes we find like a couple of lines for the methods, and that doesn't also give a good impression. If you did not invest a lot of time on the methodology, it doesn't, the work doesn't have that accuracy, consistency, and quality according to the standards. Then the results that should be described briefly. It doesn't need to contain everything. And then the conclusion, which needs to be aligned with the results. It cannot be just a conclusion of an idea or thought that we have, but that does not have anything to do with our research findings. So, and it needs to be supported by the results that we have found. It cannot overestimate them or underestimate the results of our study. And I would say this is one of the major limitations many times described in many abstracts, that you want to sell your work so much that in the end, the message is not consistent with what has been found or at least reported in the result of the abstract. Then the writing. When the writing gives already an impression, and I would say here, those countries like we are represented here who are not native in English do not have an advantage. So the writing is a limitation and has been a limitation many times in the past, the language, because of the English. But now we have tools that can help us to translate very well. So I will say before you submit even the manuscript, just disclaim that you have used a translator tool, but make sure that at least the English, and not only the language, but the way that is written, the clarity, the structure, that it follows the recommended structure for scientific works, which has nothing to do with literature or with poetry. So there is a specific standard to learn how to write research. And I will say that this is even simple. When you learn to write research in one way, you can write it for any other field. So for example, I'm methodology of INT'L, and I usually help not only with the conveners, with the systematic literature review, but with the way that the manuscript is presented in a more appealing way and more well structured. But on the other hand, I will say that we, or at least I as editor and as evaluator for fellowship or for any other research application, I would say that we are also living the overuse of artificial intelligence. So when I see as editor that the manuscript could have been written just by ChatGPT without any contribution of the editor, that's also creating a rejection from my side. Or as a reviewer. Why? Because when I see the typical words of artificial intelligence, like underpinning or embracing, or I will say they are becoming more and more frequent, in the end, all manuscripts look the same. So I think that we need to be careful that at least we can put our stamp on that manuscript and that it doesn't sound or it doesn't read as any other manuscript. That's for my tip would be what I will usually do is because of sometimes of the limitations of the language, what I will do is to write in my native language that I will say where we are more fluent. We can discuss more appropriate, and as we discuss at the hospital with the colleagues, even write the discussion in our language and then translate it. That usually helps to be more original and not to be so much copy-paste from all this type of structure that we are seeing nowadays. And then I will say that for me, this is very relevant, not only for manuscript, but even for presentations. Well, you have seen here that I have not used any text. I will say this is probably too much because this is the first time I'm not even including any text, but this is because there was not any, evidence, scientific evidence. So this was more a personal opinion. and I'm using just the presentation to provide my personal view and my personal tips. But I will say that making any material that we submit for research visual will help to the acceptant to receive the message much more clearly and also to disseminate the manuscript. If we submit an entire manuscript, for example, a review to Nature, or even to Lancet, or to whatever journals, ARG, without any figure, probably our colleagues will not use that to present it in different congresses. So the review can be great, but the reference will almost not be cited because it takes a lot of effort to put all that content into a visual way. And also, if we submit just tables, then that will not get also into a presentation, because we know that tables in the slides, they don't look so well. So I will say that try to include anything that can be converted to figures, trying to include that, or even your opinion, your thoughts, and try to be here innovative. I think that also for abstracts, for congresses, for EULAR, for ACR, when you see a figure, it denotes first that the authors have invested more time on creating and thinking about this figure, and it also goes very quickly to get the message. Usually think that reviewers, either for abstract or manuscript, they review thousands or hundreds of them, and when there are figures included, this is much easier, that at least they can get a quick message of what we are trying to report and transmit with our manuscript. And then credibility. And I can understand here, okay, how do we gain credibility? Because when you start in the research field, you don't have credibility by yourself. So as an author or as a group, as a research group, you always need those first chances to get credibility. I will say that how usually people get credibility is either working with or submitting data from already known cohorts, so international cohorts that are available for our colleagues or participants who have contributed to the data set. And I would say here, for example, for the ASAS PERESPA is an example here. And usually when the reviewers see already cohorts that are known to them, they do not question the data set. So the data that is being submitted, they just will review and focus on the manuscript and that specific research question itself. And that I will say that for starting to publish, that is one of the main tips that I will provide. Then also systematic literature reviews, because those are not, those are independent, and I will say that's more easy to submit than start with a big cohort. But nowadays I will also be careful because of those artificial intelligence tools that are also creating reviews as 1,000 reviews per minute. If we cannot contribute to cohort, I have seen also that, how do you get credibility? Well, when you are a fellow, when you are starting on research, you usually have mentors who have recognized names and already have gained credibility in the field. So I would say, if you are already at the stage of not having a mentor, maybe you can add some colleagues to contribute and to review also the manuscript, and just try to get that manuscript, which sometimes, for example, in my center, I get colleagues, I have colleagues who have a lot of very interesting data in other topics, but then the way that they write is not in that scientific way that it's usually recommended, and that it is a pity that doesn't reach further, just because of how the data is analyzed and extracted and published there. So I would say just consult either in official or extra-official ways with people who have more experience here. And then I would say that as editor, I would say that it is gaining points when you propose reviewers. people think that proposing reviewers will decrease sometimes the chances to be accepted. No, if you propose your friends, the editor sometimes will say, okay, I will not submit it to your friends. But if you propose just people from the topic, that will help the editor task to forward the manuscript for revision. And it is becoming really a challenge to find reviewers because the number of manuscripts submitted is increasing progressively while the number of reviewers is not increasing. So I would say that this is really a challenge. If we propose some reviewers, that will be always helpful to the editors, and the editor will take this as a message that you really know people who are interested there. And also, I forgot here to include, but the reference are also important for the manuscripts. When you have a manuscript, the editor will go sometimes quick to the references, or I would say more the reviewers, to check if the references are updated or not, because that means if you are updated in the field or not. So finding very old or obsolete reference, that also usually doesn't help either. And then my last tip will be about trying to balance quantity versus quality. I would say, well, if I can share my experience as editor, there are specific regions, for example, I would say or countries from Asia. I see thousands of manuscripts submitted, and I would say the probability of rejection is quite high because they combine huge cohorts, a lot of systematic literature review, meta-analysis, network meta-analysis, but in the end, this is not adding new messages or new findings to the field of spondyloarthritis in this specific case, and that creates, in the end, already then let's say the contrary impression that we want to create. So by submitting more, sometimes we think that something will get in, but if you are having many works rejected, probably the next one that you will submit with a higher quality, the editor will have already the experience from previous work, and you do not earn credibility as mentioned previously. So I think that with this, I just wanted to introduce the topic, but I think the most interesting is for this type of webinars is the question and answers. And I will be very happy to, answer in my experience, to see if I can, share some thoughts and further tips with all of you. And I will be very happy to do this. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Victoria, for your insights. And I will begin by the first question. It's regarding the title. Do you recommend putting the results in the title or just keeping as an interrogation?
Well, I would say this depends on the finding. If you have negative results, then sometimes you just keep it as an interrogation. But I would say, for example, for trials, for findings, try to be specific on what is the main message of the results. I would say that unless it is a very new research question, then you can leave it as a question because the question itself is attractive. Then I will tend to include already the results on what is being reported and the main message in the manuscript.
Thank you. Another more general question. In your view, what skills should the next generation of researchers develop to write and publish effectively today?
Well, I think that the first skill should be thinking about good ideas. This is not something that we will find very easy in all this artificial intelligence world. So I think that, and for that, how I usually come up with ideas? Well, I usually come with ideas while preparing presentations. That's most of the times when preparing or attending. I say preparing because that's usually when you review a topic more in depth. And in detail, and then you start from the basic, and then you say, well, there is no whatever consensus to define this, or there is missing, or even in courses, for example, if I can say now the last project, which is the ASA's recommendation for clinical practice. So I thought while giving and lecturing in an ASA's course, because they asked me, okay, what is the recommended outcomes to use in clinical practice? And then there is no recommendation. So that's why you usually come up with ideas. I would say that for the next generation, ideas and will be a challenge. Usually, I don't say this only for research, but for anything in life. I used to think a lot about ideas while walking from my house to the hospital. So I was just either just walking or listening to music. Now, if I go by metro, you see everyone with the iPhone just checking the news, checking whatever the social media, and that's making us, I think, to be less active in proposing any ideas. So I think that we need to really take time or brainstorm with other colleagues, take the time to propose ideas. And then what I see from the new generation that I could also consider myself, well, not that senior, but is that patient. For research, if you learn something while doing your PhD, is that you need to be patient. And with a manuscript, it doesn't go there just very quick. I think that we all learn with the first manuscript to value what is a manuscript because the process is really long. So I think that this is a new skill that will need to be developed by future generation, which is to be patient. This is what I usually advise to my trainings, is that research is a work that you need to plan ahead. And so it's not last moment like we are used nowadays. And it is also a process that needs to be, where you need to be patient and open mind.
Thank you. Another question about the number of reference in the manuscript.
Well, this is usually limited by the journal. So for some, it depends if it is a standard report or research, original research, if it is a review, if it is a brief manuscript, a letter to the editor. So this is usually limited. However, I will say that if you don't need more reference than what is there in your list, do not extend the list just to put there more reference. I would say that another thing that I see, well, it's good to include your own references to show that you have worked in that topic. So it's not only to get higher impact factor in your CV, but also to show that you have worked in the field. But it's usually good to recognize the work of other colleagues and add that to show that you are open to other research ideas and ways to analyze that data. I would say the number is not so relevant. The quality of the reference is very relevant. And here we have seen how artificial intelligence made up non-existent references. So I would be very careful, because if there is one thing that will create a rejection, will be that, because that's really lowering the credibility of your work. So I would say that please be careful to not include anything that is not true, is not real.
Thank you. Another question about open access journals. In your opinion, how is the rise of open access journals and preprint platforms changing the landscape of the scientific communication?
I think all this is progressively having an impact. I mean, we will all evolve for those tools that provide us a very quick way to get the scientific evidence. However, I mean, the saying that we did not go, we removed the paper manuscript. In the past, we all had it printed, and when we went to EULAR, we got ARG at home printed, and we do not do that any longer, most of us, but still there are some people who still like to have it printed. We have moved forward to the online version. I would say that in the future, still the going directly to the journal will be of a specific benefit. So I would say it's a way also to keep us update, which is you can have any tool that keep you update. And the update cannot be the same, for example, for clinical purposes than for research. So for clinical purpose, you may just want to have more a bit of summary or update for clinical guidelines and recommendations and validated tools, while for research, this is a little bit not enough. I mean, this is not enough at all, and you need to be really updating the last research questions that have been answered. And for that, I would say that you need to go into journals update and to set all these journals update that we have frequently, weekly or monthly or wherever we have, although it's becoming more and more difficult.
Thank you. Another question. When several causes, results, or items are in one paragraph, I think we should encourage numbering instead of plain text. What do you think? Do we need to make some?
Yeah, I think to present the results in a structured way is always better. Just think how you would like to see this. So when we find really extended sentences, that's impossible to follow. Maybe that's grammatically that's correct, but it is impossible for us to follow. Even, for example, the same when we structure the manuscript, we just report results or methods, and we do not make any section. That's really more difficult to follow. So try to split in different sections that are digestible for the readers. Do not over split, but split in and I would say logical sections. So that's sometimes you do, and the same order for the methods than for the results. Don't split the methods according to one's outcome and the results according to others. And I would say, so for example, I use numbering when even I want to describe even the objective of the studies or populations or criteria or results. So I usually number as 1, 2, 3, 4, and consecutive. So I think it's a nice way to report results.
If the results of the study are solid, but the quality of the writing is bad, is it a reason to reject the article?
Yes.
Yes.
Honestly, honestly, it gives a very bad impression. So I would say the manuscript and abstract don't get through because of this. Well, with the abstract, you don't have another option. With the manuscript, if you think it's worth, then you will say, well, I would advise to review the writing or ask for a writer, expert, or a language. But nowadays, as I said, there are tools. So that means that the team that did not even put the effort to write it in a nice way. I would say, well, the results are really exciting. Then you provide another chance, and usually that it's adjusted. but I would say that's the exception. Usually, the impression that you get is bad because you need to read many manuscripts, and if the writing is not clear, it really makes your life very tough. So you
Okay.
want to do things also clear for the editor, and I would say even the reply to the reviewers. Please also try to get the specific answers in the same document. Reviewers do not want to have 10 documents open while reviewing the manuscripts. So just try to provide everything in one single document, well structured. Where is the question? Where is the answer? Very clear in different colors if you need, and try to make it very clear for the reviewers.
Thank you. Another question about the references. For the number of the references, is it better to check the journal guidelines before you submit it? If they asked you for a limited number of references, you need to not use more than it.
Yeah, well, you mean the deadline of the...
Now, the number of references, for example, if we are not allowed to,
If I submit, I couldn't say the number, but yes, check the number of references. So that's not also the number of words, because otherwise it will be automatically rejected by the editor team. So even before they getting into the editor, there is an editorial team who will check if the author guidelines are fulfilled. So if there are more figures, if there are more number of words, even if you report that they were lower, they will count it most of the times to make sure that this is not extended. I would say with regard to the references, another tips would be to include references from that journal that you are submitting, or from high impact journals. Yes, that don't include reference or reviews just from other manuscripts. It's better to include original research than many reviews manuscripts.
A question about a systematic review. How much time in your experience should typically be allocated to developing a well-structured research question and a strategy in a systematic review? Is it 1 day, 1 hour, 1 week?
Not 1 hour for sure. So this depends on the project and on the expertise of the research and methodologies if they are not the same. So, and the librarian. So you need to combine the researcher who uses, for example, for your project, you have conveners, the methodologist, and the librarian who is assisting with the well, if the methodologist does not have the expertise to run the research question. But I will say that this is very important, and you really need to have a research in the PICOS format, research question, because sometimes it's missing and there is no PICO format there. So you miss one of the items, for example, the outcome, that's relevant, or it is just defined very broadly. Yeah, it needs to be very specific. With regard to the time, I must say that this takes, for some systematic literature review, like the one as Euler, it will take even days of work. But if you have experience, I would say if it's only one research question, half a day, just to set the research question and strategy. But then you need to align with the librarian, and that usually takes longer, because then the librarian will send you the research strategy, and then as a researcher, you need to check if those terms are the ones that you really want to check, and that there is no any other missing there.
Okay, thank you. A question about AI. To which extent we should use AI, especially in paraphrasing? Is there any precautions?
Okay, here we can have a very long discussion. I've seen that one of the previous webinar was a lecture by Diego Benavent, who indeed has been one of my fellows, and I have very long extended discussion with him. So what I say is that, well, if, at least for me, if use it as much as it helps you, because it helps, but use it in such a way that I do not realize that you have used it, or at least that I cannot prove. Honestly, there are some people who are writing emails or manuscript as Shakespeare's. And then when they speak, they are not able to speak that very beautiful language or English. So I think that it doesn't create a good impression. So it's just because of the impression. Try to use it to improve, but tell ChatGPT which is your level of whatever English. I would say, well, tell also to not use very common words. I had not seen in the past, honestly, underpinning in any manuscript in the past. And now I see it in, I don't know how many abstract and projects. So, or embracing.
Yeah.
It's just that it's so, for me, that's so ChatGPT that it says, well, it's clear that you use it. And when you have that clear, then the editor will not know if you had used it this little or that much. And then you can disclaim. Nowadays, they ask you, have you used ChatGPT to improve the language, to create figures, to write the entire manuscript? Just disclaim, because I think it's better when you say it up front.
Okay, thank you. Another question about the authors. Is the editor allowed to remove any of the authors from an article?
I've never done that because you don't have the, well, Paul, you cannot analyze and verify that that author has not contributed. What I've seen is, but this I leave more as a co-author. So for example, in my center, they tend to include all colleagues collaborating to contribute to the data set of advanced therapists. And then we end up with 25 authors, and we know that the authors are not, the author guidelines and fulfillment requirements specify that contributing to data is not enough. You really need to be responsible and contributing to the manuscript itself and that analysis. So when you have 25 authors for one manuscript, which are not international recommendations or consensus, that usually, well, the editor will say, or the reviewer, I suggest you decrease the number of editors to those really contributing to this work, a specific work. And then I've seen the opposite case, which was a recent trial that was I think it was submitted to EULAR, and it was a trial submitted by only 2 people or one person. You cannot run a randomized control trial only with one person. So that's automatically rejected, because then the rest you don't trust. But have you experienced being removed by the editor as an author? Because I'm surprised of that question.
Maybe one last question. In your opinion, what are the biggest challenges faced today in getting researcher published in high impact journals? And what about the APC?
It's becoming more, well, I don't know if more difficult. I would say that if they are not collaborative projects from international, multinational registries, consensus recommendations, invited manuscripts as expert, is becoming very, very difficult to get something accepted by, I would call it ARD, or arthritis and rheumatism. So if it is really answering a very, very new question, that will get in. But I would say in the past, for example, data from my own center or from even from systematic literature review that we have submitted to high-ranked journals, top journals, that has been rejected.
Okay. I don't know if you have time. Yeah, maybe so So last question. Alors, I'm sure we all have seen catastrophes in AI translation. We have to be very cautious and reserved. Do you have any advice about the translation?
I must say that I have not used so much for translation AI. Well, what I've used in the past were more like a translator. For me, I had a good experience, not very as good as a ChatGPT, but in the past with DeepL. So that was one of the tools that I was using to check. As I said, I wrote everything, and then either I check if I could get better terms there, or more than term, the structure. Sometimes it's the structure of the sentence. And so I would say that with ChatGPT, I have not so much experience with bad translations themselves. But it also depends on the setting. It's not the same to translate a text for an email than to translate a text for a manuscript. So what I've learned from Diego is that you need to tell ChatGPT why you are translating and which will be your dissemination source. So if that is for a presentation, just tell ChatGPT that will be for a presentation. If that's for an email, If that's for update in your CV, if it's for an application of a grant, if it is for a manuscript, specify, be as much specific as possible.
Okay. So the last question is about the molecular pathways. So in introduction, the molecular pathways part, which is preferred to talk about it in details or just small brief?
Did I understand? I'm not sure I understood the question correctly.
So if we need to make a paragraph on molecular pathways linking with our research question, some fundamental aspects, do we need to make it into the details or just small brief?
I would say adjust the level of your entire manuscript to the readers of that journal. For example, I usually have the opposite. So it's pharma industry explaining all the outcomes to submit it to rheumatology, and they explain what is the BASDAI, what is the BASFI. I think this needs to be removed if that's for rheumatology, or what is the disease, what is axial spondyloarthritis. You need to remove that. So for the molecular pathways, I would say the same. If you are sending this to clinical scope journals, then try to simplify the sentence, but in such a way that it is understandable by all the audience. If you are submitting to a more specific journal, then I will go into details and explain in a more detailed way.
Thank you. So on behalf of the organizing teams, I would like to sincerely thank you for your insightful presentation. We are grateful for your time and expertise and hope to see you again in our INT'L webinars. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Victor.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure, and I hope that we can also contribute from the different fields to the research in Arabic countries. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.